I've been searching, follow every step, every road, every single trace, analyzing, try to figure out those lines up on your face. You're still a mystery, those secrets kept away from me.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Power to Change. I'm Bob Bauer. I'm your host. And Power to Change podcast is a production of Warriors Heart USA and of Power to Change. Today, we start the series, Sometimes You Win and Sometimes You Learn. I want to present this question to you. Give it some thought as we go through the program. Does it hurt when you lose everything? You know, challenges in our lives have the propensity to knock us off our feet. How we get up, when we get up, or if we get up, all depends on our attitude and our mindset. We all recognize that losing everything does in fact hurt. We don't like to talk about it. We don't like to talk about any of our failures or our losses. Why? Because we're embarrassed. However, we do often rationalize those failures and losses when confronted about them. Our attitudes are laissez-faire. Well, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. This attitude won't change the circumstances, the outcome, or even how you feel about the loss. What it does do is give us cover to hide, leaving people thinking that we've accepted the loss graciously. It establishes a substandard mindset and growth. You know, there was this guy, Dr. Robert Schuller. I used to watch him on TV. He was a minister that started his ministry out in a movie theater. Well, excuse me, a drive-in movie theater. And he eventually propelled his ministry to grow to the point where he built the largest, most gorgeous church you could find in California. It was called the Crystal Cathedral. It was built with glass. Well, the late Dr. Robert Schuller once asked this question: what would you attempt to do if you knew you could not fail? You know, my dad used to say, failure's not terminal, but quitting is. Failing or losing is a learning opportunity. We've heard about the substandard thinking, or how the substandard thinking can guide you into a perpetual cycle of failures and loss. Yet, with a winner's mindset, you can see things differently. Sometimes you win, and sometimes you learn. Winners don't brush the failure under the rug. They approach loss differently. They do not run away from their challenges. They understand life's greatest lessons. They gain from their losses if they approach them the right way. Now, you know, right here is I have a footnote. It says, interject personal note into the study. So let me say this. There was a time in my life I was that person that ran away from my losses. I created a perpetual cycle of failure and loss. I created a cycle of not accepting responsibility, refusing to be held accountable by blaming others. I had a mindset of failure. This resulted in me hurting a lot of people, to include my own children. Even today, I'm still facing the consequences of those poor decisions I made long ago. It's tough. I can tell you that every time I started to do something and I would fail, I'd ask myself, why? Why can't I win? Well, Hugh Prather once said, when I have listened to my mistakes, I am growing. When I started to pay attention to my mistakes, to learn from them, I began to grow. There's an old saying that says, there's not much distance between the penthouse and the outhouse. When we win, we don't feel any pain. We're excited. We don't even evaluate our mistakes because we won. But when we lose, we're in pain. We hurt. In fact, losses can get us emotionally stuck, mentally defeated, and we create a gap of I should and I did. There's 11 traps that people can fall into. A mistake trap. Well, a fatigue trap. I'm just too tired to move forward. Comparison trap. Well, they're better than me. Timing trap. It's not the right time. Inspiration trap. I just don't feel it. Rationalization trap. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Perfection trap. I just ain't got it right yet. Expectation trap. I'm going to fail. I know I'm going to fail, so why should I try? Fairness trap. Life isn't fair. Why should I try? The public opinion trap. We're always worried about what others are saying. And the self-image trap. We see ourselves as losers. The mindset, our attitude. All these traps are caused by losses, and all of them create gaps between knowing and doing. If we want to be successful, we have to bridge those gaps. Staying in the same line of thinking, let me ask you this question. Do you believe the world would be a better place if people would become better leaders? Come on. Have you been listening to the news lately? Wouldn't you agree with me that we have a leadership problem? Why do people fail to develop in good leaders? I've heard all kinds of excuses over the years. I wasn't born a leader. I can't be a leader. The number one loss is often your biggest loss. And losses never leave us the same. That one I want to highlight a little bit because, losses never leave us the same. Athletes and coaches live in a world of wins and losses. It's been said that one loss is good for the soul, but many losses are bad for the coach. Now, all my children are athletes. Payne, my son, who plays football for James Madison University, has played baseball and football predominantly all his life. My daughter Allison, who's a senior at George Mason University, graduating with his degree in education. Allison played softball. Probably to me, it was one of the best softball pitchers I've seen come along. She played volleyball as well. My daughter Hannah played volleyball in high school. She played basketball, and she played softball. My daughter Gabby played volleyball for high school. They've all been on teams that had winning seasons. And then again, they were on teams that had losing seasons. My children, and yes, their parents, learned that the severity of the losses wasn't as important as how we experience those losses. Sure, losing hurts. And it can make an impact that is rarely positive because losses do change us. We can take the fear of looking bad, paralyze us. We can let the fear of negative experience of the past warp our future. But the one thing I want you to remember clearly, we must never allow our losses to control us. Jerry Stackhouse, who's a NBA legend, once said about his career in professional basketball, you win and you forget. You lose and you forget. That's how he summed up his basketball career. But I want to share with you that we have to learn from our adversity. When we experience loss, we have one of two choices. We can respond immediately in the right way, where the problem becomes smaller than us, or we can respond wrong or even fail to respond at all, which will create a chain of perpetual failures. When our losses go up, our self-esteem goes down. Remember, the most important person that you'll ever speak to is you. Be careful what you say. Most importantly, remember you're the person who will evaluate you. Be careful how you evaluate yourself. Everyone loses at one time or another. Come on, but let's be real. It's not really a loss if you learn from it. If you stay where a loss puts you, you'll be stuck in that hole, and that loss will define you if you let it. Now, there's a book that John Maxwell wrote that is actually titled this series, this 13 episode series that we're doing, Sometimes You Win and Sometimes You Learn. In one of the chapters, it talks about Charlie Brown. It was a comic strip John alluded to. And Chuck was upset about always losing his ball games. And he was whining to his friend Lucy, who, if you are familiar with the Charlie Brown series, Lucy was not the best person to whine to. But however, in this case, Lucy interjected that, Chuck, we learn more from our losses than when we win. Charlie Brown quickly piped up and said, well, that makes me the smartest person in the world. Many of us might agree with Charlie. But St. Ignatius of Loyola once said, we only learn when we're ready to learn. I can tell you I was stubborn, hard-headed, refused to take responsibility or be held accountable. It took me a lot of bumps and bruises to find myself in the place where I want to learn. Because you see, I was Charlie Brown, seeing life through the eyes of a perceived loser. I hurt a lot of people. I let a lot of people down. But I did more damage to me. Let me ask you right now, are you ready to learn? If you're in a place of adversity, suffered losses and failures, and you're feeling like you're at the bottom of a deep hole and you can't get out, I want to invite you to join me as we travel down this pathway to a life that matters. I'm Bob Bauer, and this is Power to Change.
I've been searching, follow every step, every road, every single trace, and I